Hey, I've got a question for you. Do you know what an electrolyte is? It's one of those things that you think you know what it is, but when you come down to actually explain it, you can be a little bit lost for words. Or maybe your mind goes immediately to the picture of those little satchels with the powder in that people rip open and put in a glass of water and make up an electrolyte drink. Maybe that's the picture you've got. In this video today, I want to cover all things electrolyte. We're going to be looking at some very basic questions like, what is an electrolyte? Why do we need them? Why are they particularly important on the carnivore diet or the low-carb keto diet? And where do we source these electrolytes from? So our first question today, what is an electrolyte? An electrolyte is a mineral that has an electric charge to it. It sounds a little bit dramatic, but you think of your car, it has an electrical system, and so does your body in many ways. But an electrolyte is a mineral that has an electric charge. So the minerals that come into this category of electrolytes are magnesium, sodium, potassium, chloride. That's just a sampling list, and we could probably name some more, but they're certainly the main ones. So why do we need them? Electrolytes come into play with two parts of our body, our nerve endings and our muscular system particularly. There's a number of great benefits that come to us via electrolytes. Let's list some of them down. First of all, they are great for hydration and for keeping your hydration up. Secondly, electrolytes are really going to help with muscular problems like spasms or cramps I'm thinking of, particularly on the carnivore diet. You often hear of people experiencing cramps in the night in their leg or their ankle, and it's not very pleasant. Electrolytes also help balance our whole energy system. And so if our electrolytes are out of whack, then it could be the cause of just feeling fatigue and run down and having no energy, because we require electrolytes to balance our energy. A fourth reason we need electrolytes is because they help with heart health. You see, those minerals, potassium, the sodium and the magnesium, are all vital ingredients in keeping your heart healthy. So it is essential that we have a good supply of them to look after our heart. The electrolytes can have a real role to play in helping regulate our blood pressure. And then finally, electrolytes help greatly with mental clarity. You see, our brain is part of our body. It's an organ like every other part of our body, and it needs to be fed. And our brain needs electrolytes to function properly. So when we're getting enough electrolytes and the brain has a good supply of them, then we're going to have mental clarity. It's going to do away with brain fog, and it's going to help keep that brain fog at bay. It's going to help with cognitive issues. So many good reasons to make sure that our electrolytes are up to the right level in our bodies. When our electrolytes are low and we're not getting enough, there's a number of symptoms we might experience. Things like fatigue, just feeling devoid of energy, cramps and muscular aches. We could experience headaches or dizziness. So you can see very quickly there are a lot of good reasons to make sure that our electrolytes are up at the right level. Now, when we come to talk about the carnivore or the keto diet, anything that's low carb or zero carb like the carnivore diet is, it's particularly important. Just the fact that we are eating very few or no carbs is going to deplete our electrolytes. This comes about for two reasons. A low-carb diet will deplete our levels of glycogen, and it will also reduce our insulin levels. Now, often that's one of our aims, to reduce our insulin level on these diets, particularly if we're concerned about being pre-diabetic or insulin resistant or any of those hyperbolic health issues. But the bottom line is that because of these two issues, our electrolyte level in our body is going to be depleted at a faster rate than somebody who's not on a low-carb diet. This is why you often hear people talking about the carnivore diet, and they're continually reminding us to drink more liquids, to drink more water, to keep our fluids up, to stay hydrated, because these are the things that carnivore or the keto diet can often deplete. So, where do we get electrolytes from in our diet? Well, they tell us that the chief source of electrolytes are from vegetables, fruit, nuts, and seeds. There we have it. Now, Houston, we have a problem, don't we? Because on carnivore, we don't have any of those foods. But let's ask the question, are there any other foods that are on the carnivore diet that do help with our electrolytes? And the answer is an emphatic yes. Let me list them down for you because each of these are very important on a carnivore diet. Number one is eggs. And of course, many of us on the carnivore diet eat a lot of eggs, and for good reason. I don't need to tell you again because you know already, eggs are a powerhouse of vitamins and minerals and goodness and protein and so many great things in eggs. And this is why we include them in our diet. They're part of the carnivore diet and they are so good for us. So electrolytes that we need are in eggs. The second thing that electrolytes are in for the carnivore is organ meats. Now, don't groan, because organ meats are a powerhouse of electrolytes. They are so good for us, and this is why we need to try and include them on the carnivore diet. Now, you might say, I don't like them. Well, look, there's so many things you can do with them. You can chop them up and put them in mince. You can add them with other meats. You can, there's so many approaches, and I've actually found, although I was reluctant at first, I've actually found I quite enjoy the organ meats, and they are so good for you, and they're certainly going to help you with electrolytes. Number 3 would be bone broth. This is what we were talking about just last week, and you might have seen my video where I made a big batch of bone broth here at home, and if you missed that, I'll put a link to it at the end of the video. But bone broth is just so packed with electrolytes. It's a delicious and a nutritious drink, and bone broth is such a rich source of magnesium. Now, magnesium, one of the benefits of magnesium is that it helps you sleep. So if you have trouble sleeping at night, you might like to try a glass of bone broth, say an hour or so before you go to bed, and see what difference that makes to your sleep. It could be just the key. There's one other item we could include of carnivore foods that contain electrolytes, and that is fatty fish. I'm thinking of salmon, of mackerel, of sardines, those really fatty, oily fishes. Now, of course, they're good sources of omega-3, but they are also very rich in electrolytes, so you can include some fatty fish. And on top of all these things, we could add good old salt. We've been told all of our lives that salt is bad for us. It is not. We need salt. And on carnivore, you need to salt up your meat, but don't get the rubbish meat from the supermarket. Even the Himalayan salt that they call in the supermarkets, so often it's been dyed and got chemicals and all sorts of rubbish in it. Get a decent salt. One of the best salts going around is Redmond salt, and you can even get it in Australia where I am, and you can certainly get it in the States. I will leave a link down below in the description of where you can get Redmond salt in Australia. So if you're concerned about your level of electrolytes, what can you do? I want to give you 2 suggestions. One is to remind you that you can go to your doctor and get a blood test, because all of your electrolyte minerals can be measured by a standard blood test with your doctor. And that way you know in black and white where you stand with electrolytes and what your levels are. The other thing you can do, and this is what you hear many carnivores talk about, is to add an electrolyte drink. And a good brand that a lot of people talk about on carnivore is LMNT, or LMNT, they call it. These are electrolytes that are sold here in Australia, and again, I'll give you a link for them, and they are also readily available, I think, in America. The LMNT electrolytes are free of sugar. And this is the problem if you go to the supermarket or the pharmacy to buy your electrolytes. Often the ones there are just loaded with sugar, and you certainly do not want to be adding sugar back into your diet on a carnivore diet particularly. But the electrolytes from LMNT, they are totally sugar-free. Now, they do have flavoured satchels, and most of their electrolytes are flavoured, and the flavoured ones do contain a little bit of stevia, which is an artificial sweetener. So if you've got a problem with artificial sweeteners, and maybe for good reason, you might want to avoid those, but they do make a plain electrolyte that has no artificial sweetener in it at all, no sugar, no additives, just electrolytes. But I tell you what, I've tried that one, and the taste of it was pretty unpleasant. I find that I like the flavoured ones, and so right or wrong, I drink those despite them having a little bit of stevia in. And there's many flavours to choose from. You can get sample packs with mixed flavours. I tend to gravitate back to the lemon and lime flavours, and I find them very satisfying, and I have one each morning and I quite enjoy them. They are delicious. So there we are, folks. That's just a quick thumbnail sketch of electrolytes. I don't claim to be an expert. I've just done a bit of reading and study and research on the subject because it's a matter that concerns us on the carnivore diet. If you missed the video on how to make bone broth, I will put a link above. I would invite you to join our Facebook group, The Carnivore Pensioner. And I want to say thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video. And until then, keep telling your story.